Fox News alert now, the legal stakes getting higher for Donald Trump. Federal prosecutors have notified the former president's legal team that he is now the target of a criminal investigation into the handling of classified material. The question now is that whether or not an indictment is looming. Maybe. Andy McCarthy, Fox News contributor and a former assistant U.S. attorney. Andy, good morning to you. Don't know what Biden's status is. Pence was cleared a week ago. What's the difference in this case if everyone's been doing it, Andy?
Yeah, well, in law enforcement parlance, Bill, target means somebody who is very likely to be indicted. I imagine that the other people you mentioned, Pence is now a closed case. Biden may technically be the subject of an investigation, but that means the grand jury is merely looking, and it's not clear whether you'll be charged or not. When you get told you're a target, it's a virtual certainty that you're going to be charged.
Okay, then Jesse Waters asked me this last night. Let me ask you here. What would that look like if a former president of the United States and a current candidate to be president of the United States again is indicted? Then what is the procedure? Does anything different happen, or does he simply turn himself in like he did last time a few months ago in New York?
Yeah, Dana, this is so unprecedented. I think that anybody tells you they know exactly how this is going to play out is either delusional or not telling the truth. The fact is we just don't know. We've never been through this before. What I think will happen is that there will be coordination between the FBI and the Secret Service. So it'll be similar to the coordination, probably better because it's all federal, but similar to the coordination that went on when former President Trump surrendered in Manhattan on the state charges. So here, presumably, this is going to happen in Washington. That's where the grand jury is set up. This seems to be something they're pitching as a grand jury obstruction case as much as a document retention case. So what I presume will happen is the FBI will work in coordination with the Secret Service to arrange a situation where former President Trump would be allowed to come to court and be processed like anyone else who gets charged.
The Wall Street Journal reported earlier in the week that another grand jury had been convened in Florida. It was a question of whether or not it could be prosecuted in Washington or state of, I don't know what the difference is. But what would rise to a guilty offense? Is it, hey, I'm not giving this to you, it's none of your business, or I've got proof that I showed a classified document to a friend of mine who was staying at Mar-a-Lago? What could it be, Andy?
Here's the gamut that this runs, Bill. So the Espionage Act has a series of offenses in it that run from the very serious, where you're dealing with people who are trusted with classified information and then give it to enemies of the United States in order to harm the country, to a low-level offense that applies to most people that this comes up with in government, where they exhibit gross negligence in mishandling the information, such as storing it in an unauthorized place, taking it out of the place that is the safekeeping area, allowing it to be seen by somebody who's not authorized to see it, losing it, getting it destroyed or transmitted to the wrong place. Those are all negligence offenses. They are prosecuted criminally because the people involved are trusted with access to classified information. So along with that comes the obligation to follow the rules for handling it. And then in this particular case, the way they have portrayed it, especially since Biden's problems with classified information emerged in January, it seems to me that what happened is the Justice Department shifted on Trump from concentrating on document retention to concentrating on obstruction of the investigation and the grand jury. So what they're looking at is the representations in particular that were made in June of last year when, based on information from former President Trump, his lawyers gave a package of 38 documents to the FBI, telling them that those were the only documents in his possession that bore classification markings. And then, of course, we know 2 months later, they do the search warrant at Mar-a-Lago and find another 100.
Andy McCarthy, do you think the Justice Department is keeping the White House informed?
Yes, but I think it's being done in a very discreet way. I also think, Dana, this is one of those things where, Smith knows what's expected of him, and he knows that they're trying to create the illusion that the Biden Justice Department and the White House have nothing to do with this decision. So I think they're being very discreet
cautious
on that.
All right.
score.
Andy McCarthy, thank you.
Thank you, Andy. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.